And in cloud computing, we're going to cover what happened before cloud computing, what is cloud computing, the benefits of cloud computing, the types of cloud computing, and who uses cloud computing. So beginning with the first, before cloud computing, I have an illustration here which shows this is the person who wants to host a website, but he is asking an IT personnel of the company, how can he host a website? So the IT personnel answers, in hosting a website, he is telling him that he needs a server, he needs a database, and he needs a software. And in calculation, all this involves money because it requires the hardware, it requires the software, and it requires for the people for maintenance, and yeah, it requires people for maintenance. So if you calculate all this, it's going to cost a lot. So this person here, he is troubled. So he asks the IT person, how is there any other alternative? So the IT person says, well, the cloud computing can be a better solution. So what is cloud computing? Cloud computing is the use of network remote servers hosted in the internet to store, to manage, to process data rather than the local servers. As we know, the main aim of having a server is storing data, processing data, and also managing data and serving data when needed. But cloud computing has enabled this process of using local servers, has tried to eliminate the process of using local servers, but instead we get to share the internet server. We get a piece of the internet as our server instead of each and every person having a local server. Also, it is the delivery of computing services, servers, databases, networking, software, etc. over the internet. So the benefit of cloud computing, as you can see here, we say that you pay for what you use. It is not involving paying a large amount of money for something that you are not going to use the whole of it. It's just like going to the shop and paying for the amount of thing that you're going to use directly for that time without considering without having leftovers. And you are paying for something which you can consume directly without having wastage of leftovers or some of the parts which you will not be consuming. In simple terms, it means storing or accessing your data over the internet. So instead of you having your own storage or your own local server, you can use the internet as a means of storing and accessing your data. It just needs you to have a computer and an internet access. So cloud computing is a service which is provided to the people, but the people who manage cloud computing, they're called cloud service providers. And example of these service providers include Amazon Web Service and Microsoft Azure. So what are the benefits of cloud computing? One of the benefits of cloud computing is the vast amount of computing resources that can be accessed, that can be provisioned in minutes. Instead of wasting a lot of time in the process of setting up or building up a server room or setting up the infrastructure, you can just access the cloud services which you require in a matter of minutes. In a matter of minutes. So the only thing which you're supposed to be considering is the amount of money for paying for the service, your internet access, and your computers, instead of wasting a lot of time, a week, a month for setting up. You can just spend few minutes or few hours, and you obtain the service which you want from the cloud providers. Another benefit is it eliminates the expense of buying computer hardware and software. Instead of each and every person setting up their own server rooms, you can use the internet servers. Yeah, you can use the internet servers for them to provide for you a part of storage which you can use for your enterprise or for your company. Also, scalability. It is easy to scale up your cloud capacity. For instance, if you're a startup company or you are a small organization, you have not grown to a large extent that you need that you require a large database, or you require a large storage facility. So cloud computing can enable providing you the service with a storage, with a enough amount of storage which you require at that particular time. And as you scale up your company, you can pay for more service instead of you building your own servers, which will cost a lot. And at the end of the day, the amount of money which you could be using for investing in your company, you could be wasting on the servers and infrastructures. So this cloud computing has enabled these startup companies to scale up easily with the help of their services. And also accessibility. As we talked about this, we said that in order for you to access the cloud computing services, you only need your computer, your cash when needed, and also your computer, your cash, and also the internet service. Also, there is better security. With cloud, your data is stored in a centralized, secure location. And also I can add here that these service providers are dedicated people for their job. So they have invested in this service. They have invested in security because that's the main thing which they're doing, instead of instead of a person or a company who is else to invest in cloud computing. It is very difficult. So as a result, when a person has secured their own servers, they are not highly secured because their investment is not in the server in the server rooms, but their investment is in other things. So at the end of the day, the security in the process of storage of data, processing of data, it's very, very low. So we're going to types of cloud computing. Cloud computing is divided into two main categories, which are cloud deployments and also cloud services. And in part of cloud deployments, it's also divided into three. There is public cloud, there is private cloud, and there is hybrid cloud. And in the part of cloud services, it's also divided into three: IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Let's begin with deployment models in cloud computing. So in cloud deployment, there is public cloud, private cloud, and hybrid cloud. A small illustration is shown here that in public cloud, we see that it's not locked. In private cloud, we see that it's highly secured. And then in hybrid cloud, we see that it takes the characteristics of both the public cloud and the private cloud. So in public cloud, we see here that here the services are stored off-site and are accessed over the internet. It can be used by the general public. All hardwares and softwares and other supporting infrastructures are owned and managed by the cloud providers. So here, most of the services which are provided, these services can be accessed by the whole public. So it's not secured, it's not limiting the type of people who can access these services. So example, the Amazon Web Servica and the Amazon Web Service and Microsoft Azure. Private cloud, they say that the cloud infrastructure is used exclusively for a single organization. The organization may run its private cloud and outsource it to a hosting company. The services and infrastructures are maintained by a private network. Example, AWS and VMware. So here you can see that an organization can hold a part of the cloud for their own activities without any external or unwanted person to access these services. Also, we can see on the third one, the hybrid cloud, it consists of the functionalities of both public and private cloud. A simple illustration is when you talk about public cloud, you can speak of when you are trying to board a daladala, where each and every person can access the daladala. And when you have a private cloud, you can illustrate with when you have your own private car. So you are the only one who holds the keys to the car you are owning, unless you provide the keys to another person who you want to use your car. And hybrid cloud, you can give an illustration of you holding an Uber or a taxi. So part of it, you can say that you are the owner, while also part of it, it's also the driver. The driver is the owner of the transport. In hybrid cloud, it consists of functionalities of both private and public cloud. Example, the project NASA is using the hybrid cloud computing deployment. It open source cloud registered project. Nebula uses a private cloud for research and development, and additional public cloud to share databases with external partners and the public. Another illustration maybe I can say about TMBA. They have a website, but in this website, there are parts of the website which can be accessed by the organization, and also there are parts of the website which can be accessed by the people who are trying to get the permits, the licenses for the medicines which they are trying to import. So it's hybrid, because some parts can be accessed by the public and some parts can be accessed by the private cloud. And the website is hosted by the So in cloud services, it's divided into three. There is infrastructure as a service, there is platform as a service, and there is software as a service. In infrastructure as a service, you rent an IT infrastructure, example, a server and network, etc., from the cloud provider on a pay as you go basis. Users of infrastructure as a service can outsource and build a virtual data center in the cloud and have access to the resources as well. Example, AWS, Elastic Computer Cloud, EC2. Also, platform as a service provides a platform on which software can be developed and deployed. The cloud provider allows the customer to deploy their own application using programming languages and tools. Example, AWS, Elastic, Renaissance. And the third one is software as a service. Cloud providers host and manages the software application on a subscription basis. Client maintains the control of a software environment but does not maintain any equipment. So this is an illustration of what happens, or the things which this is an illustration on who can access what on the basis of IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. because in parts of cloud computing, it's divided into categories. One can access data, in the beginning application, then data, then runtime, then middleware, then as you go below operating system, virtualization, and you go now to the hardware part. So on the type of service which you want to use, you have limitations on what can you access in these levels. For instance, software as a service. Software as a service is when a person can only access a software and use a software, but cannot change anything, example, any data or database, or cannot access the operating system which is hosting the software, or cannot access the hardware which is hosting the particular software. So here in software as a service, it's only a person using a particular software. And when we talk about platform as a service, is whereby the cloud providers provide you with the ability of deploying your own website or your own application, and you have only the capabilities of accessing the data. But going below to the infrastructure operating system, it's the cloud providers who are responsible for managing them. So a good example is when you want to deploy a website, you only can deploy the particular website on a part of a web, and you can access changes. You are able to make changes on the data, but below you have no access. The cloud providers are the ones who manages your particular website. And also in infrastructure as a service, as we talked before, we talked before concerning private we talked about the private organizations. Mostly they want to have their own space in the cloud. So these people can request to have all these levels of access until to the operating system. So they're able to deploy the particular operating system they want to use. They're able to host the particular application. They're able to manage the data which they are holding, but still to the cloud providers, they're the ones who are managing the hardware part and the networking part. So who uses cloud computing? Here we're going to see some of the big companies who use cloud computing in carrying out most of their services. A good example is Pinterest. Pinterest use AWS and can maintain site scalability and manage multiple petabytes of data every day. Another good example is Spotify. They use AWS. They store vast repository, scale its capacity. Another good example, which most of us use, Netflix. AWS enables Netflix to deploy services for storage and allow users to stream shows from anywhere in the world. Another example is Expedia, who choose AWS due to highly scalability infrastructure and better cloud services. So in a nutshell, this is all the things which we are able to talk about. We talked about what was happening before cloud computing, what is cloud computing, the types of cloud computing, the benefits of cloud computing, and the accesses of levels of infrastructure which one can access depending on the type of service they want to use. And my presentation ends here. Thank you very much.